What's the good word, y'all? DKB here, and I have an interesting trade scenario introduced by the 33rd Gang. This involves the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Jets, and this is all for the purpose of the New York Jets trying to acquire their pick of the big three tackles that the media, mock drafts, and big boards have projected as the three best available tackles in this class. And for this mock trade scenario, the New York Jets move up so that we can select Paris Johnson out of Ohio State University. At least in regards to the big three, it seems like most people are comfortable with Peter Skoronski, Broderick Jones, and Paris Johnson leading the way. Maybe somebody comes out of nowhere. There could be a massive rise by a guy like DeJuan Jones, for example. Maybe Cody Mock continues to ball out. But for the most part, these have been pretty much set in stone since, the offseason has really kicked off. Now, Paris Johnson, pretty big target, right? He's been the better tackle that most people would say, considering DeJuan Jones is his running mate. And I think it would be potentially a smart move if the New York Jets absolutely love this guy and think he has the legitimate traits to start not only right away, but have a pretty long progression path, since he's generally projected as the tackle with the highest ceiling coming out of Ohio State. So, in my experience, I've done two mock drafts. The first one, we had two tackles come off. Peter Skoronski generally always comes off first, and then it's usually Paris Johnson. I want to say in this most recent one I did yesterday or 2 days ago, I believe Peter Skoronski came off at number 10, matter of fact. And so I do find it interesting the trade targets that each team potentially had. We're selecting Paris Johnson. The Eagles dropped down 3 picks to select cornerback Keely Ringo. But there's a lot of potential that says that the New York Jets could also still sit on their pick at 13 or potentially even move back. A lot of this depends on what happens with Aaron Rodgers and what a trade package with him looks like. I'm sure we'd love to, move back a few picks, pick up an additional second-round pick to replace potentially what we lose for Aaron Rodgers. But all of that hearsay aside, based on what's happened in the combine, I would expect there to be quite a few risers. Now, does anybody jump immediately into the top 10? I'm not sure. You never know how that really goes. What the media thinks and what actually happens on draft day tends to be drastically different for the most part. But you think about guys like Jalen Carter that have dropped somewhat due to, some off-the-field issues. You think about the quarterbacks that absolutely ball down, and you're seeing guys like Richardson get projected higher and higher. We're talking 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the first round potentially, and, people are going to start fiending in that top 15 pick range if we see somebody dropping, and that can create a lot of opportunity for the Jets. But then you also take a look at what happened with guys like Kalijah Cansey, I think his name was, the inside defensive tackle that had the Aaron Donald-like kind of measurables and went off at the combine. You got to think about all of the cornerbacks that went out there and put burners on, guys like Nolan Smith that balled out. And so there's opportunity for a lot of growth here. And maybe the New York Jets could find some huge value in just sitting and waiting, and maybe that pushes some of these tackles down the board for us. But in terms of the trade scenarios, there was 2 of them presented. The New York Jets would receive the 10th pick. The Eagles would get the 13th pick in the first round, the 143rd pick in the 5th round, and then a 2024 second round pick in the first trade scenario. And if we're, you'll see why when I present the second option in a moment here. But I would prefer the first option because we're only losing 2 of our 6 picks in this draft. It still presents opportunities to move down. We still get to keep our second round pick this year, our third round pick, and so there's still some higher equity selections that can allow us to potentially trade back and mitigate some of the damage done. On the flip side, with the second option, the Jets still receive the 10th pick. In this case, we also get the 219th pick, which is a 7th rounder. Excuse me. The Eagles would get the 13th, which is our first. the 74th pick, which is our third, the 112th, which is our fourth, and the 207th, which is our sixth. So essentially, you know, kind of swapping the 6th and 7th round picks there. I don't love the second scenario because we lose 4 picks this draft, and while we don't have to worry about losing a high selection next year, I don't think Joe Douglas would like coming out of this draft with only 3 selections when we're going to be hampered by free agency and what our cap will allow us to do, hampered by what potentially happens with Aaron Rodgers, even if there's packaged players, etc. involved in the deal. And we're going to need more than 3 guys. If we do go that route, then we end up having to rely heavily on an undrafted free agent class to really fill in a lot of these holes that are still going to be left by only coming out with 3 guys. And we're talking about keeping, we would still have our second and we would still have our 5th round pick along with the first that we would spend on Paris Johnson. So potentially 2 very good players that we can come away with in the 1st and 2nd. And then in terms of the 5th round pick, it's going to be anybody's guess, right? It could be another experimental player in terms of swapping positions. You know, maybe a running back that we want to add to the room, a weapon in the wide receiver room, anything similar to those situations. So I would definitely still choose the first scenario, give us plenty of opportunities to still try to recoup some draft capital back if we want. If not, then cool. We still get to sit on a treasure chest of 4 or 5 picks. It's not that much more than having 3, but still, I want a few more throws of the darts in that situation. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Philadelphia Eagles fans, if you're listening, let me know what you think about trading down to get cornerback Keely Ringo for my boys with the New York Jets and gals. Let me know what you think about us targeting Paris Johnson and moving up to do so. Either way, appreciate you guys. I'll catch you again. Peace.